go 4. Coming at you. So look, you see the first to be verb. It was a time of great and exulting excitement. The country was up in arms. The war was on. And then that's just about it, folks. After that, look at the verbs that happen here. And every breast burned the patriotism. The drums beat. The bands played. The toy pistols popping. The firecrackers hissing and spluttering. You have the fluttering wilderness of flags flashing in the sun. The volunteers marched. The proud fathers, mothers, and sisters and sweethearts cheer them on. The packed meetings listen. The tears run down the cheeks. The pastors preach devotion. They invoke the God of battles. And the good cause in outpourings and fervent eloquence move every listener. That is a ton of strong verbs. Matter of fact, here's what I want you to do. I want you to copy that paragraph, and then I want you to paste that paragraph in a new document. Pause me to do that. All right, you should have copied and pasted that document in a new paragraph. Now what I want you to do is I want you to search in the document. So this is, you should see in your upper left corner in your Word document, it says search in document, or I think if you do Command F, it brings that up as well. And then I want you to type in, since this is past tense, just type in the word was and see how many wases there are. They should light up. They should be highlighted for you. And there should be 3 of them. That's my count, is 3 of them. And they're all early in the story, right in the first line, first 2 lines. Type in the word, then go back up to your search and type in the word were and see how many words there are. 1, I count. 1. That's it. All of this is 176 words by my count. 176 words. There are 3 wases and 1 were, and that's it. And even the were is a part of a verbal phrase, were beating. So that, to me, doesn't count because you've got the beating part in there. This is how you check your writing, and you should check your writing every time to see how many is's and are's and was's and were's are in your writing. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't ever have them. There are times where it's perfectly fine to have a to be verb. In fact, I just said it. There are times where it is okay to have a version of to be in your writing. But for the most part, find them first and see if there is a way to write those sentences better. All right, go back to your show don't tell document. If you scroll down, you'll see where I write in red. You should always check your verb use after you write. Let me show you how. We just did that. You're going to, for one of your assignments, you're going to do that for some writing you've already done for this class. You're going to highlight your writing and see how many is's, are's, was, and were's you have written, and see if there's a way that you can write that better. What this does, it does a couple things. 1, it gets rid of the telling. Now we have the showing. And number 2, it adds power to your writing. And number 3, it makes your sentences far more concise. Let's take a look at how this works. So underneath your, or on your show don't tell document, underneath the red font that says you should always check your verb use, let me show you how. Let's look at this example. This is from one of my students who writes well, but her writing is going to be better now than ever before. So let's look at, I'm sorry, his. Let's look at his response to the editorial about Michael Schwerner and radical empathy. This is the assignment you did way back at the beginning of the semester when you read those 4 articles. So here's what this student wrote here on this document. Lou's argument for radical empathy is that it is always important to consider an issue from another person's point of view. Focus on that sentence and look how I've highlighted 2 to be verbs, 2 is's in red, and the only strong verb or action verb is to consider. What is that? That's the infinitive. My goodness, Fred. I think the hat is too tight on my head. That's the infinitive, to consider. So you have 2 is's and then to consider. Let's count up that the words in that sentence. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21 words in that sentence. Now look at the shift. Look what I do. I'm not going to change a single thing about what this person says. Instead, I'm just going to get rid of the to be verbs. Lou argues that radical empathy allows people to consider an issue from another person's point of view. How did I do this? Well, I did this by putting subject and verb right next to each other. In that first example, you see Lou's argument for radical empathy. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words, and then that writer chose is instead of a strong verb. The subject in that first sentence is argument. So if you made that sentence shorter, it'd be Lou's argument is. So the student is starting out with a really weak sentence versus what I have now. Lou argues that radical empathy allows people to consider an issue from another person's point of view. 3 strong verbs in there, not one single to be verb. And guess what? It's 4 words shorter, from 21 to 17, just like that. Now, if you're under the gun for word count, let's say you got to write a 500-word story and you're like at 300, and you're like, oh God, I need to add a lot more words. Well, then this ain't going to be good for you, because you're going to watch your sentences get a lot crisper and more concise. I'll tell you this, I'd much rather see you under the word count and write powerfully like this than to fill your writing with a bunch of weak sentences. All right, so let's scroll down and let me give you an example of telling. The lecture was boring. So no details at all, and we have that to be verb, was, sitting right there. Not good. Not good at all. So look how I change it through details and verbs. The lecture dragged on for 80 minutes. So you see that word dragged. As the professor droned on, one female student shopped online. 2 students texted most of the time. One student plopped his head on his desk and started snoring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strong verbs. Not a single to be verb, and the details right there, the specific number of minutes, the specific things they're doing, the specific place that the student put his head, all add to make us feel like we're there. Now, I'd probably fix a couple things in this sentence, or in this, in what I wrote there. I don't like dragged on and droned on. That's not very good. So I'd have to figure out a way to change that. But I'd much rather see this, change the repetition of dragged on and droned on. But I'd much rather see this in your writing than the lecture was boring. All right, so I'm telling you right now that this is the best simple writing lesson I can give you. Soapstone is pretty complicated. There are a lot of moving parts for that, but show don't tell. It's details and verbs, and your writing, I guarantee you will go from sounding like junior high, high schoolish level writing to Mark Twain level writing, just like that. Scroll down again a little bit. To be verbs tell. So the example there in red, the track star was fast. So to be verbs don't give you details very well, and they just tell you. Strong or action verbs show. The track star ran quickly past the other runners. So look at how we immediately have a much fuller picture of what this track star is doing without you telling me what that track star is. Now, if you scroll down, let's take it to the next level, and that is looking at an issue with adverbs. As much as I love adverbs, or I think they're fun because you can bounce them around and they can modify different things, for the most part, you don't want to use adverbs. You want to stay away from them. And the problem with them is that in many cases there's a better word than your 2-word combination. Again, let's look at that sentence in red. The track star ran quickly past the other runners. That's pretty good. It's certainly better than the track star was fast, but you got to look at that and figure out a way to make that stronger if you can. In purple underneath that, I give you a chance to do that. What verb could you put in there? What one word could you put in there that supplants ran quickly? The track star what past the other runners? Pause me if you need to and think about a verb that would fit in there. All right, well, maybe you came up with flew past the other runners or sped past the other runners. Those all work. I kind of like sped because now you've got star sped. You've got a little alliteration happening there. But the goal then is to realize that the more you can increase your vocabulary with verbs, the better off you're going to be. There are websites that list verbs from A to Z that allow you to kind of look through and pick and choose verbs that might work. But the more that you can do this, the better. Listen to podcasts, and you'll hear of good podcasts. You'll hear strong verbs. Read great stories, and just look for verbs. Go back to Kate Fagan and the Madison Holleran story, or any of the other stories that we've read, and you'll see strong verbs. Go right now to the Dasani story and look at that first paragraph. Pause me if you need to. So I'm going to emphasize every strong verb in that first paragraph, and I'll de-emphasize any to-be verb. She wakes to the sound of breathing. The smaller children lie tangled beside her, their chests rising and falling under winter coats and wool blankets. A few feet away, their mother and father sleep near the mop bucket they use as a toilet. Two other children share a mattress by the rotting wall where the mice live, opposite the baby whose crib is warmed. There's a to be verb, but at least it's connected. Is warmed by a hair dryer perched on a milk crate. Look at that verb right there, perched, not on a hair dryer that is on a milk crate. I bet you that Andrea Elliott, the author, when she first wrote this, and she's just kind of typing it out, probably wrote by a hair dryer that is on a milk crate. Look at the difference when you get rid of that is and you replace it with perched on a milk crate. That is unbelievably better. I really hope you're seeing how this works. And if you keep going, slipping out from her covers, under her covers, the oldest girl sits at the window. She can see all the way across the Brooklyn Empire State Building, the first skyscraper to reach, not to be, but to reach 100 floors. And then look at the next sentence. Her gaze stops at that iconic temple of stone, its tip pointed celestially, its facade lit with promise. To be verbs are gone. It's great strong verb after strong verb after strong verb. The first skyscraper to reach 100 floors. It's as if the building itself is moving in that writing. It's unbelievably powerful. And what's great about it is it's simple. It's nothing that any one of you can't do to change your writing. If you can tell, I get a little pumped up about this because, and I know a lot of you aren't going to go into journalism at all. Doesn't matter. Think now about your cover letters. Think about when you have conversations with people for jobs. Think about when you need to write an email. Every time you write, you transform your writing when you try to, as best you can, remove those to be verbs. Back to the show don't tell document. Pause me if you need to get back there and scroll down a little bit and look at this nice, tight, in red sentence, verbs rule. And look at the difference between that versus verbs are really awesome. 2 words to 4 words, crisp, compact, strong. That's the difference. That's what matters, that verb. Scroll down to the last part I want to talk about, which is expletive construction. Expletive construction is the killer of all bad writing. It's when you start a sentence with there is, or there are, or there was, or there were. That's the expletive structure. I don't know why they call it expletive. Expletive is another name for profanity. Maybe it's because anytime somebody who understands good writing sees this sentence constructor, they scream expletives. That's what I'm going to go with. So let's look at an example here. This first one. There are more fans at Miami's football stadium today. So that the first part of that sentence, there are more fans. So you're starting with a to be verb. It's like you're highlighting the to be verb way up there at the front of the sentence instead of what you could do, which is to get a really strong action verb right away. Can you correct it? Pause me and see if you can get rid of there are and not correct it with more fans are at Miami's football stadium today. What can you do? Pause me and see if you can figure it out. All right, well, what do you have? More fans pack Miami's football stadium today. More fans, maybe you have to use a to be verb with another verb. More fans are attending Miami's football stadium today. All of those are better than there are more fans at Miami's football stadium today. How about the next one? There was dust on the bookshelves. What can you do to get rid of there was? Well, start with the subject, dust, and then figure out the strong verb, and then finish it with the bookshelves. Dust what? The bookshelves. I bet you that verb popped into your brain right away, and I can almost guarantee you, it's almost like I'm reading your mind what verb you're going to say. Dust covered the bookshelves. Am I right? It's a great sentence, right? Isn't that better than there was dust on the bookshelves? Heck yeah, it is. Dust covered the bookshelves. 4 words instead of 6. Next one. There are many things I like at Skipper's. Pause me and see if you can come up with a better one. My guess is that you came up with I like many things at Skipper's. Subject, I, like is the verb, and then finish the sentence. The next one's a doozy. There are many people who think that there was better music in the 80s than there is today. That has 3 expletive structures in that sentence. There are many people who think that there was better music in the 80s than there is today. Pause me and really try to work on this and see if you can come up with something better. All right, what did you come up with? My hope is you came up with many people think 80s music, and then what else could you say? Many people think 80s music trumps today's music, rules over today's music, beats today's music. All of those make that sentence better. And I guarantee you, you have dropped a ton of words from that original expletive form. All right. One more thing that I'd like for you to look at on this document is to, or not on this document. One other thing that I want you to think about is to look at your previous writing of all the things you've done, not just in this class, but in other classes, and see where those to be verbs are and how quickly you can change your writing into great writing. Please make sure that you're looking on Canvas for the assignments that I'm going to ask you to do for Monday. They'll involve mostly working on these details and these verbs. All right, that's all I have. Hey, look at that. I think I have only 4 videos instead of, what was my under over 7? I think I did it. All right, bye.